now.
Thank you, Baroness Casey. I want to go back to that point you said about victims a few minutes ago. I totally understand the reason why we mustn't over-traumatise them again or re-traumatise them again. But I watched on Newsnight last night. I was hugely moved by the testimony of the two victims who appeared with you on Newsnight. But I was also hugely impressed by their ideas, their desire to change. Have you any thoughts on how we might use victims who want to creatively, not just as passive givers of evidence, but actually help us change the system?
I think that's a really good point, actually, Mr. Kohler. I think that my understanding is that the new government wants to establish a victims panel precisely for that purpose, to involve them in the policy making and decisions. I don't know where that's at. I don't work for the Home Office, but if you wanted to ask them about that, I think that would be a really good thing to ask them about. I think they made that commitment publicly, and I'm not sure where it's at. And I think the purpose of that panel is to go a bit beyond reliving your trauma and a bit more into specifics. And I think it's a really interesting point you make, actually, that I think in some ways the Newsnight piece and various others are allowing people publicly to say what they think should shift. And I think that's quite, I'm really open to that. It's partly the sort of session we had with survivors and victims was less about the trauma they'd experienced, but actually more about what they think should happen now and what type of things would help them. And I would say we covered off a range of things, but it was part of why I thought that the fact that they feel that nobody is straight, that they're not candid, that they don't really know what's going on, wasn't just about their own cases, it was wider. And that's partly, it was another part of why we came to the view that we should settle on a national inquiry. And I think that the other part of the national inquiry with its local footprints is that I think it would be helpful to make sure that, yes, inquiries are there to establish the facts, to apportion blame, to use inquiry language, and to make sure it doesn't happen again. But it would be a missed opportunity not to use that victim's voice to say, so what specific things do you think we need to change? So when I was the Victims Commissioner, actually under the Coalition in 2010, 2011, going back a bit, I remember meeting victims, and one of the specific things that one of the families wanted was that prisoners that had been convicted for killing their partners could not arrive at the Court of Justice and Family Proceedings and argue for custody directly with the family whose mother they had killed. And my jaw dropped, thinking, here I am thinking I know a bit about the world, and I had no concept that we allowed that to happen. And it seems like a very small change, but it was a change I think that government or its successor, Conservative government, put through, and that was because of those victims. And I introduced them to various ministers, and it went forward from there. So I think, I was struck last night by both Fiona, and I was struck by how practical they are in terms of what they think should change, and I think that's always helpful.